edition of Bet. I'm your host, Anita Marks, and we've got a great show lined up for you as always. Erin Dolan will join us. We'll do a deep dive into tonight's NFL game. Of course, the Chargers going up against the Colts. And Joe Fortenbaugh will join us from Las Vegas. He'll have a play for tonight's game. Also, we'll take a look ahead to what's coming with the college football playoffs and all the festivities and games that are upon us this week and, of course, the next. And last but not least, we've got Youngman Suk, good friend of mine, covering the NBA, to break down some of the NBA games on the slate tonight as well. So let's get it started. Let's bring in Erin Dolan. Erin joining us tonight. Erin, I pulled out my old Nick Foles t-shirt for the show today. I'm sure that's got to put a smile on your face. He helped your Eagles win a Super Bowl. You ready to break it down?
Yes, he did, and I'm ready to break it all down. Let's get to it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right, so reaction or no action, Dallas covers against Tennessee on Thursday. Now, they're a 9.5 favorite currently. Reaction or no action?
No action. This just feels like a really large spread for a total that's in the low 40s. I just don't trust the Dallas Cowboys as a whole right now. Now, I know Tennessee has been slipping up. We know Ryan Tannehill's not under center, and Malik Willis did not look good in one of his first starts. 99 passing yards, 2 interceptions. But as for Dallas, their defense, look what the Philadelphia Eagles were just able to do. Gardner Minshew, the guy had 355 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. I know he had 2 interceptions, but at the same time, they were able to put up a ton of points on this Cowboys team when I really felt like the defense should have been able to limit them. Now, if you look at the trends right now, Tennessee is 0-4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games, and Dallas is 2-3 against the spread. We've seen Dallas go down to the wire with teams that they shouldn't be going down to the wire to, such as the Houston Texans, for example. So I know it feels like this should be an easy cover for Dallas, but this is a stay away from me, so no reaction.
See, interesting, because this is a big reaction for me for a number of reasons. Number one, Dallas is still playing for an opportunity to, of course, win the NFC East. The Eagles are going to have to lose out. We saw Gardner Minshew, who I think performed extremely well, but nonetheless, they ended up losing that game. They have a lot of injuries that they suffered in that game against Dallas last week. So if the Eagles lose out, Dallas wins out, there's a great opportunity for them to win the NFC East. That's number one. Now for the Tennessee Titans, this game means nothing to them. Win or lose, it means nothing. What it comes down to is next week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So there's a chance that Mike Vrabel is going to rest some players, specifically Derrick Henry, who I don't know how much gas he still has left in the tank. If ever there was a game that he needed to be rested, this would be it. So for me, this is a big reaction. I'm going to lay the points. I think Dallas is playing for a lot. Tennessee is really playing for nothing. So I love it. I love this play. Christian McCaffrey wins Comeback Player of the Year. You can get that at plus 220 right now. Now, you're the same as for Saquon Barkley and Geno Smith, okay? They're both favored at plus 175. Action, reaction, or no action here? Would you play any of these cats?
I'm going to say reaction on this one, and it's actually quite surprising that Christian McCaffrey, knock on wood, is not injured again for another season. I feel like this guy has not played a full season in so long, but he's been really great for the 49ers so far. If you look at his numbers, 130 carries for 580 yards. He scored 8 touchdowns in 9 games for the 49ers since he's been on this roster. I think there's a solid case for all these guys, but I do think that Christian McCaffrey, knowing who he's going to play against, which is the Raiders and the Cardinals coming up, his numbers might continue to get juiced. They really may need to rely on him, and he's improved the 49ers really ever since he's really been on this roster and left the Panthers. So I do think there's a good case for him to be made, so I will say reaction on that one.
So polar opposite here, no action for me. First things with Geno Smith, in order to be a Comeback Player of the Year, you have to come back from being something relevant. Not sure when Geno Smith was ever relevant. I think his biggest competition is Christian McCaffrey, and I'm talking about Jared Goff. Give me Jared Goff at plus 650 right now. Love him. He went to Detroit to die. In fact, the Rams paid $2.5 million of his salary to ship him away. And look what the Detroit Lions have been doing. Now, granted, they lost to Carolina this week, but still 6-2 their last 8 games. And he has really produced a vertical threat. He's been the straw that has allowed that Detroit Lions offense to stir and make some noise. So I'm all about Jared Goff to win the comeback player. And again, the odds at plus 650. That's how I'm rolling. All right, last but not least, we've got the Chargers to win 2 quarters. There's 4, as we know, for them to win 2 of the 4 quarters, and you can get that at plus 111. Reaction or no action?
I'll say reaction to this one because I don't think that the Chargers are going to blow the Colts out of the water. We've seen the Colts over the last 5 games are 3-5 against the spread in the first half. They've actually picked things up because the Colts were one of those teams that we had to continue to fade in the first half of games, and now we're seeing them starting to put up some points. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be able to do that in the second half of the game, but I do think the Chargers ultimately will end up winning 2 of these quarters. I don't think they're going to win all 4. I think that the Colts somehow, some way are going to give them a run for their money, but the Chargers pull away in the second half of the game. So reaction for me on this one.
Oh my gosh. So 3 for 3. We are on the opposite side, Erin. I'm going no action here, and for a big reason. Nick Foles, dude on my shirt, hasn't played in 2 years. I think he's the wild card. There's obviously something that Jeff Saturday has seen in him in practice. As we know, great locker room guy. Everybody loves him. That's what happened in Philadelphia. Can he provide, some kind of spark tonight? Possibly. Also, the Colts defense, 11th best in the NFL, and they're actually quite good against the pass. I know we're going to get into this in just a second, but they play a lot of cover 3, which Herbert actually does not do well. His statistics against cover 3 is no bueno, as I like to say, probably too often. Anyway, let's start with our deep dive into the matchup, right? So again, we've got the Chargers going up against the Colts. The Chargers are favored by 3.5. This line's been fluctuating. At some points, it's been up at 4.5, 4 steady throughout the day, but right now it's at 3.5. The over-under's at 45.5. How are you playing it, Erin?
In terms of the spread, I don't really trust either team, to be quite frank. So what I'm going to do here is actually look at the second half of the game and take the Chargers minus 2.5. This, again, is kind of a lean for me because it has moved from minus 1.5 to minus 2.5 this morning. And the reason I think that is because we've seen the Colts, the last 2 games that they've played, their defense has made history, and for bad reason. We saw against the Dallas Cowboys, they put up 33 points in the fourth quarter against this Colts defense, which was, by the way, the largest fourth quarter blowout in history. And then the Minnesota Vikings, if you didn't see this game, you need to go back and watch it because it was absolutely insane that the Minnesota Vikings were able to put up 39 points on this Colts defense in the second half, including that overtime, and they ended up losing that game. But they did cover. They did cover for what it's worth, but I just don't really trust this defense, especially in the second half of games. We've seen it time and time again. There's nothing they can do to really fix that. I know some people might make the argument, well, the Colts are going to come out firing and be great in this one because they're just so embarrassed. I don't truly believe that, and as an Eagles fan with Nick Foles, I do think it will be closer than people expect, and he could probably shine in the first couple of quarters, but I think the Chargers are going to pull away, and they'll end up covering the second half spread minus 2.5.
So I'm going to go with the under here. That's my play at 45.5. Like I said, Nick Foles hasn't played in 2 years, so I think we can expect him to be a little bit rusty. Also, I think the Colts are going to be committed to running the football with Jackson and Moss in the backfield, because the Chargers are just god-awful against the run. They're allowing 5.4 yards per carry. The Colts defense, like I said, 11th best in the NFL, and a Chargers offense that I feel has been playing extremely conservative as of late. And as I said just a second ago, Justin Herbert, not great against cover 3, and the Colts play that about 80% of the time. So I'm going under 45.5. What are some of the prop bets you're going to play tonight, Erin?
So I expect a big game from Justin Herbert. I'm taking him over 37.5 passing attempts. Now, he's hit over this mark in 10 of 14 games, and he's just been great at hitting over these passing attempt props. In fact, 9 games this season, he's had 40-plus passing attempts, which is ranked second behind only Tom Brady. So I do expect him to really be slinging the ball. The Chargers offense ranked second in passing yards per game, which then also leads me to Justin Herbert over his passing yards prop. As we just saw, the Colts defense let Kirk Cousins throw for 460 passing yards. He also hit over this mark in 3 straight games, 7 of 14 this season, and he's averaging 287 passing yards per game. Again, I don't trust this Colts defense. We're going to need a big game from Justin Herbert, so I like him over his passing yards and also over passing attempts.
Okay, so prop bets for me, like I said, I'm focusing in on the running game for the Colts, and we have a two-headed monster now in that backfield with Deion Jackson and Zach Moss. So I'm going over their rushing totals. They're not high at all, and these two dudes are are sharing the carries in the backfield. Derrick Henry put up 63 rushing yards against the Chargers last week. So just imagine what these two can do as a tag team. And let's have a sack party. Buckner, Pay, Ngakwe, all of them getting in and getting after Justin Herbert. Why? 33 sacks on the season. This offensive line has allowed 21 sacks on Justin Herbert the last 5 games. And these 3 dudes average anywhere between 6 to 9 sacks. Not average, but that's how many sacks they have so far this season. 6, 6.5, and 9.5. So I think all 3 of these dudes are going to get in on the action and get after Justin Herbert. All right, before we let you go, it's Pay Dirt Picks. And Erin, we have not been doing well as of late. I'm at the bottom of the barrel. Unfortunately, Christian Watson running wrong routes. So Aaron Rodgers punishes him and doesn't throw him a touchdown pass. That hurt us last week. Alan Lazard didn't score either. So you're a little over $100. I'm at $25. Again, I have the under here. You're looking at this game a lot differently than I am. So I'm curious, who do you think scores touchdowns tonight?
Well, for what it's worth, I feel like every Monday we talk about these primetime games, cashing the under, which is true. So it is hard with these Pay Dirt picks. But I have 2 for you. I'm going to start off with Keenan Allen, putting $5 there. Total gut play. I don't really have a lot of great analysis, but I do think Justin Herbert's going to be slinging the ball all night. We don't know who he's going to find in the end zone, but I do like Keenan Allen, $5. He has 2 touchdowns in 7 games this season, but I do think that, that's going to be bumped up. All right, also Austin Eckler, which isn't a surprising one, going to put $15 on him. He leads the team with 14 touchdowns, 9 rushing, 4 receiving, and his 14 total touchdowns are tied for the most in the league right now for running backs, which is super huge. On top of that, you might not find great value on this, but it actually is pretty valuable right now on Caesars Sportsbook, so I'm going to put $15 on him as well.
Again, I like the under in this matchup. I'm not expecting a ton of scoring, but if the Colts do score, I think it's going to be in the running game. So I'm going to put $5 on Zach Moss to score, and I'm going to put $3 down on Deion Jackson to score. Again, just because the Chargers are just god-awful against the run, and I think that's where the Colts will try to exploit them. So those are my 2 Pay Dirt picks. So hopefully we have a bunch of winners tonight with our touchdowns, Erin. We will see. Thanks so much for joining Bet as always, and enjoy the game tonight. Happy holidays to you and your family, my friend.
Same to you.
All right, so we go from Erin Dolan, we take you to Las Vegas, where Joe Fortenbaugh is standing by. Joe, happy holidays. How you survived the in-laws? You okay?
They left this morning, so I still have the in-law hangover effect, but they are out of the house. I have reclaimed the throne that is rightfully mine. Actually, I'm like 6th in order behind my wife, my kids, and my pets, but I'm where I belong, Anita. Thank you so much for asking. It's always great to be here with you.
It's always great to have you as well. All right, so before we start talking some playoffs, looking forward to the AFC and the NFC, give us your Monday Night Football plays. How are you playing this game?
All right, so I've got 2 for you. I will play the side. I'll play the Indianapolis Colts plus the points. I'm also going to give you a prop, Austin Eckler over his receiving yards at 35.5. People got a lot of jokes when it comes to Jeff Saturday, but let's be honest, he's 3-2 against the spread in the 5 games that he's coached for the Colts. And at the same time, of his 4 losses, 3 of them have been by 1 score. They got blown out in the 4th quarter of that Dallas game, and then outside of that, they've been competitive. So those jokes have helped us because they've given us value. Now, when it comes to the Chargers, 8 victories this season, but they're not blowing anybody out, all right? They've won those 8 games by an average of 4 points per game. 5 of those 8 victories have come by 3 or fewer points. So I like the Colts to keep it close. I like Eckler's receiving yards prop because this season we're getting a cheap price right here. All right, Eckler's averaging about 41 receiving yards per game. This is only 35.5 because last week against Tennessee, he only caught 2 passes for 12 yards. So the prop is dropped, giving us an opportunity to play the over. Keep in mind, Indianapolis is giving up about 45 receiving yards per game to opposing running backs. That is 6th or 7th most in the NFL. So I see an opportunity there with a cheap price on Eckler in the receiving yardage department.
All right, let's look big picture, right? We're winding down in week 16, looking ahead to week 17, so that picture is becoming more and more apparent. And let's take a look in regard to the teams in the AFC and NFC that are in and those that are outside trying to get in to that top 7, right? Okay, so in the AFC, we can see that you've got the Patriots, the Jets, and the Titans looking in, trying to get in, right? And a lot needs to happen for a number of these teams the next 2 weeks. As for the NFC, you've got the Seahawks, the Lions, the Packers, as well as the Panthers and the Saints looking in, trying to get in, with the Eagles and the Vikings and the 49ers definitely sitting very comfortably there at the top. So let's start first and foremost in the AFC. What are you seeing here? Who do you anticipate? I mean, we know the Bills are going to get in. We know Kansas City is going to get in. We know Cincinnati. I think it gets really interesting when it comes to the Jags and Tennessee, and of course the teams sitting at 5, 6, 7 and beneath. How do you see this playing out, Joe?
So it's like the most unsexy answer ever, but what you see in the AFC right now, I think is what you're going to get. I know that we can try to make this case that Tennessee can come back and take out Jacksonville. Those are 2 teams headed in very different directions at the moment. Tennessee is playing very poor down the stretch. I think they've lost 5 straight. They've got a ton of injuries. They got a rookie quarterback who's starting and trying to find his way. He doesn't have a lot of weapons at his disposal outside of Derrick Henry. That team's fading. And I think Jacksonville is playing strong down the stretch. They're going to get the division. When it comes to all the teams in the hunt outside looking in, I just don't see it breaking their way late. I don't necessarily trust the Jets, especially with their schedule. I think they close out week 17 with Buffalo, which is going to be extremely difficult because Buffalo is going to be playing for the 1 seed. So you're probably not winning that game. And if you look around, I would say if there's one team I could give you something on, it'd be Miami. Schedule-wise, they're set up to get in. I don't think you buy them at all when they get to the playoffs. I know there was all this talk that they could be the hot team, that they could be this dark horse. That ain't it. We talked about this 4-game stretch they just completed ad nauseum on Daily Wager before the start of the season. They were miserable. They lost all 4 of those games. Tua completed only 51% of his passes during those games. 6 TDs, 5 INTs. The Dolphins are a nice story this year. They are not a threat once they get to the postseason.
So it's really interesting, and I was just talking about it with Erin just a second ago. This game with Tennessee and Dallas on Thursday night means nothing for them. It means nothing for the Jags as well this week against the Houston Texans. So it all comes down to the final game that these 2 teams play each other in Week 18. The winner advances, and of course represents the division. So I'm on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the hottest team right now, and I think that's got to be a team that a number of other teams in the AFC have to be really careful about once they get into the postseason. Now, I'm not sold on the Miami Dolphins. They have looked horrible. Of course, we just saw Green Bay beat them. The Patriots offense kind of came around this week with Mac Jones. I know they lost, unfortunate fumble, but had an opportunity to beat the Cincinnati Bengals and did not. I really like this Patriots defense. I think if the Dolphins lose out the next 2 weeks and the Patriots win out the next 2 weeks against the Dolphins and against the Bills, keep in mind, the Dolphins have to play the Patriots and the Jets. That Jets defense is something special, and Mike White more than likely is going to be back in action again for the Jets that final week. Watch out. I think the Patriots possibly making it into the postseason. You get that right now, a plus 650, I think could be a sneaky good play.
Two follow-ups on that. Number 1, Zach Wilson is so bad, he's got us all excited about Mike White. It's amazing how good Mike White looks standing next to Zach Wilson. Number 2, your note on the Jaguars. I think you're right. Coming into this postseason, they're on house money. Like, think about what Trevor Lawrence looked like with Urban Meyer. We were all questioning the pick and whether or not we had it wrong. And this year, he's an absolute stud. Like, Urban Meyer was that bad. He made a surefire number 1 overall pick look like crap. And now the kid's incredible. I think that says more about Urban Meyer than it does the Jags, but I just wanted to get that off my chest. Thank you very much.
You got it. So let's take a look at the NFC, right? The Eagles, the Vikings, the 49ers, we know they're in. I think it's going to be interesting what happens with the Bucks in Carolina to represent that seed. Cowboys, we know that they're the 5th seed. Giants looks like they're going to be in if they beat the Colts this coming week. Washington, Seattle, the Lions, the Packers. Who do you have advancing here? Who's going to make it to the postseason, Joe?
I really, really want to take Carolina, but the next 2 weeks, they're at Tampa and at New Orleans, and their star cornerback, J.C. Horn, is banged up. They're bringing Josh Norman in for a workout today, so I can't get behind that. I mean, it feels like it's just going to be Tampa Bay by default, despite how bad they've been all season. My big takeaway on all of this is this. Do not invest your money in the Green Bay Packers. I know, plus 175. They're hot right now. Watch out, the Packers. You don't want to face them in the playoffs. That's all crap. Like, the only reason they're even in this conversation is because everyone else is falling on their face. Do we forget the fact that they lost 7 of 8 prior to this little 3-game winning streak? And then people say, well, they won 3 in a row. They're getting hot. They beat the Bears. Everybody beats the Bears. They always beat the Bears. You get no credit for that. They beat the Rams. Who cares? The Rams stink. And they beat the Dolphins this weekend, which that's a credible win, but it's not like the Dolphins are the cream of the crop of the NFL. It's a good win, but not a great win. So this little 3-game winning streak where we're all fired up about the Packers, get out of here with that. I'm not betting that. I wouldn't bet that. I don't buy into them. I think the seeding that you see right now is the seeding we're going to end up getting. Again, another boring answer, but that's what I see. I just don't see how some of these teams are going to leapfrog given the schedules they have down the stretch here.
The only play I'm going to make is the Carolina Panthers. I think the Carolina Panthers beat the Bucks. I think Carolina represents. I just like the way they're playing defense.
Yes.
They're running the ball with Foreman, and Sam Darnold has been absolutely shockingly impressive. So that's where I'm flowing. Let's turn our attention to what's going on in college football. Of course, it's the holidays. We know the college football playoffs are around the corner. And I just want to circle back with you because last time we had you on, or maybe 2 shows ago, Ohio State, Georgia. Georgia's favored by 6.5. The over-under's at 62. You picked Georgia at 7 under. Is that still your play? I mean, listen, if it's 6.5, I would imagine that it is.
Yeah, without question. I'm surprised, by the line move, and I'm hammering this game, all right? We'll talk about the other game in a minute. I'm not nearly as aggressive there. I am going to hammer Georgia at less than a touchdown. I've already been on them. I'm probably going to bet more as we get closer because I won't be able to help myself. Ohio State isn't good. That's what this comes down to. You're seeing this price and you're seeing this line move because people think the Buckeyes are this really great team, of which I was one of those people before the season started. I thought Ohio State was going to be nasty. They are not. They played 3 games this season that are worth talking about. Nothing else matters. They played 3 games. They played Notre Dame at home and barely got past them. They went to Penn State, who's pretty good, and they were getting beat all the way to the 4th quarter until they had a miraculous quarter to win. And then they got hammered at home by Michigan. They're not that good. Georgia doesn't need to be as good as they were last year. They're still the best team in the country. Stetson Bennett is better this year than he was last year. There are plenty of weapons. They're going to win in the trenches. Michigan pushed Ohio State all over the field. Georgia's going to push Ohio State all over the field. Shocked this is less than a TD. Love Georgia in this matchup.
TCU, Michigan. Michigan now favored by 7.5. The over-under's at 58.5. Last time we spoke to you about this game, you were on TCU plus 8. You're still going to take them at 7.5?
Yeah, still like TCU. Like I said, I'm on it. It's a bet. It's not a large bet for me. There's a concern. All right, I'm going to start with the positive here, which is I think TCU benefits more than any other team from the extended rest going into the playoff. People forget their bye week was September 17th, which means they played 11 consecutive weeks to close out the season. And it felt like every one of those games was a huge game. They just had to keep getting up. They were in these roller coaster affairs every week, and they kept winning all the way up until the end. Mental health. Physical health. I think this month really benefits them. They are a very good football team. But that being said, I'm not unloading here because I just wonder if we've seen this before with the Big 12, where they produce a team that we all get behind, and then it turns out the conference is garbage, and they get hammered as soon as they get to the show. We've seen it with Oklahoma so many times. It wouldn't surprise me if Michigan came in and overwhelmed them, because it turns out Baylor wasn't good, Oklahoma State wasn't good, Kansas State wasn't that great. They just look good playing each other. So there is a little bit of a tentative behavior from me, but I do like TCU small wager.
Love it. Again, happy holidays to you and your wonderful family, Joe. Always great having you on Bet, and enjoy your banker hours this week, right? Because daily wager, Bet, we're on early. It's right. Enjoy Vegas for banker hours, my friend. Good night. Oh my gosh, we go from Joe Fortenbaugh in Las Vegas to Om Youngmin Suk in LA, one of my favorite humans on the planet. Oh man, look I love the sweatshirt with, are those sunflowers? what are you wearing there?
Yes, they are, Anita.
I'm
wearing a Nike hoodie with sunflowers.
I love it. Every time you're on, you bring a big smile to my face. So it's an appropriate jacket for you to wear. All right, let's dive right into it. The team you cover, the Clippers, right? 4th in the West right now, 19-15, 4 above 500. Surprised that that's where they are, considering the health issues we've seen from Kawhi Leonard at the start of the season?
No, not really, because actually they would probably tell you that they are pleasantly surprised to be there at 19-15 with all of the injuries they've had. Kawhi Leonard missing pretty much a month at one point with a knee injury. He's had about 2 or 3 interruptions to his return. Paul George being out for a good chunk of games, and a whole bunch of other guys, Norman Powell, Luke Kennard, Ivica Zubac, a whole bunch of guys being out. I would say, look, they're only I think maybe 2 or 3 games out. First place, the Denver Nuggets are playing very well, as you saw last night. But I think as long as they can stay healthy, Ty Lue says give him 15 consecutive games. 15 consecutive games of a fully healthy roster. Then he thinks he can get them to where they need to be. Of course, no Kawhi Leonard tonight in Detroit, as he normally sits out a back-to-back. John Wall is nursing an ankle injury. He's questionable. So they're not 100% healthy tonight. But give them 15 consecutive games of healthy, and we'll see them potentially reach their max potential.
Well, the Clippers, they have the 4th best odds right now to win the championship. We just saw the Bucks and the Celtics go at it on Christmas Day. They look great. What's their level of basketball? Is that a good play to make? Do you feel that they're going to be in it to win it as we get closer to the end of the season?
Oh, yeah, Anita. The only thing is, this is the potential problem. Their schedule is jam-packed. They play 61 games before the All-Star break. Only 21 games down the stretch after All-Star. That means there's not a lot of games for them to really build that cohesion that they would like. I would assume that the final week of the season, guys could be potentially sitting to make sure that they're healthy for the playoffs. But we've seen glimpses of how good they can be when healthy, when Kawhi and Paul George played. And I think they've only played 11 games together on the court. They're 8-3. They just lost to Philadelphia, but when they're together, they're very good. Prior to that, they won their previous 4 games together on the court by 15 points per game. And average, they were blowing people out, including the Boston Celtics at home, who they absolutely routed by 20. So the Clippers know how good they can be when healthy. They just need to see it together for a long stretch.
All right, let's feed the people. Let's give them some winners for tonight's slate in the NBA. So your team, the Clippers, in the Motor City, they're favored by 6. The over/under is 224.5. Do you have a play in this matchup?
Anita, they've been off now for, I think, 3 days. They have not played since the 23rd. They spent, I think, Christmas in New York City to try and kind of enjoy the East Coast instead of being in Detroit for all these days. They tend to play down to their competition sometimes. No Kawhi Leonard on the floor tonight. When Kawhi's been on the floor, they've been very good. So no Kawhi, perhaps no John Wall. He was just added to the injury report as questionable. He did not play in the last game. I think he might play, but they tend to hold him out of a back-to-back as well, so maybe they might say we're going to play him tomorrow night in Toronto, like Kawhi Leonard. With all that being said, I think the Clippers are going to win. I don't think they're going to win by more than 6, though. They tend to play down sometimes to their competition. Detroit always plays hard. Detroit's lost a lot of games, but they do tend to play hard, so I think this might be closer than what the spread is.
I love it that they came to New York. There's no better city, I think, in the world possibly to be at during the holidays. That's for sure. All right, the Nets, they've won 8 straight. They're hot. They're a road dog tonight. Getting to at Cleveland, the over-under is 220. Are you playing the dog tonight?
I am playing the Nets. I think the Nets can win this game outright. They are red hot. They seem to know what makes them successful and what works for them. Everything is just vibing with Jacques Vaughn. I like the Nets to win this game. I know that, Cleveland's good at home. This could be a very close game that goes down to the buzzer. Perhaps it's a Kevin Durant 3 that wins it at the end, or a Kyrie Irving, but I like the Nets in this one.
Last but not least, the Pelicans, favored by 2.5, going up against the Pacers. They're in Indianapolis. Zion is doubtful, mind you. This just came down. And again, they're favored by 2.5. The over-under is 234.5. What's your play in this matchup?
There seems to be a bug that's going through New Orleans. Look, Zion is just coming back, I think, from health and safety protocols, and so he was added to the injury report as doubtful as far as basically conditioning to return. So perhaps he could play, but the doubtful, I don't know, it's scaring me off with New Orleans. I think Herb Jones is out tonight, health and safety protocols. They're pretty banged up, and Tyrese Halliburton has been red hot. He is on fire. Pacers tend to play games pretty close. I like the Pacers as well, and I think I'm staying away from New Orleans.
Thank you so much. And by the way, I love your MJ and Scotty in the back. I used to have that in my dorm room at college, so you just brought me back crazy memories going through my mind as we're talking NBA. Happy holidays to you and your family, Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anita.
You got it. As always, we like to end the show with Before I Let You Go. Now, I touched on this a few minutes ago with Erin Dolan. Now, hear me out. Dallas, favored by 9.5 against Tennessee. Dallas still has an opportunity to win their division if the Eagles lose out and Dallas wins out. Okay? Meanwhile, for Tennessee, this game means nothing to them. It doesn't matter if they win or lose against Dallas. It's going to come down to Week 18 against the Jags. Whoever wins that game, then that's who wins the division. So chances are, Vrabel's even said he's considering resting some players like Derrick Henry. So if you're scared, say you're scared. I am not scared to lay the 9.5 with Dallas, and I'm going to double up on that. The Jags, like I said, Week 17, they're going up against the Texans. Same situation, same scenario for them as well. So might play a 2-team 6-point teaser. Dallas minus 3.5 and the Texans plus 10. And you could get that at minus 120. So follow the news with these two games because the lines might change. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully everybody out there had a fantastic Christmas, and we'll be back on Thursday with more picks and plays for you. Have a great night.